Now I get the honor to introduce our featured speaker this afternoon. He has an incredible career over 38 years when he was at UPS. And he's the pride of Chicago that grew up and went up the ranks within UPS. And over that time, he became the president of UPS Wisconsin, UPS South Carolina, UPS Mexico, UPS Northern Europe, before his final assignment when he was the president of UPS Florida. But in all of that time, as he was going around the country and around the world as a Latino executive at UPS, he never, ever, ever forgot where he came from as a Latino. So I love everyone to give an amazing, warm HACR applause for our featured speaker today, retired UPS C-suite executive, David Ruiz.
Thank you, Sid, man. Oh, Sid, that was such a gracious introduction. I said, who is that person that he's talking about? So listen, good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you. Here's what I'd like to do, if it's okay with you folks. I want to make this conversational, right? So I didn't bring my 40 PowerPoint presentation to you, right, to put you to sleep. It's pretty tough at lunchtime to keep your attention. But what I thought I'd do, if it's okay, I want you to get to know a little bit about me. So I think you saw all the corporate stuff, but who the person is. And then I just want to share a couple of what I call pillars that were instrumental and helped me along the way, and hopefully they'll be insightful and helpful to you. But more importantly, I want to leave some time for you to ask questions or give me some comments there. So let's start. So David Ruiz, born and raised in Chicago. I'm the oldest. There's two of us in here, I guess. So I'm the oldest of four, right? So boy, girl. So perfect family planning. My family's from Mexico, de Guadalajara, Jalisco. Tapatio, land of mariachi and tequila. Yes. Jarabe Tapatio. So my family stories, they immigrated, like many of our stories in here, from Mexico, coming here looking for a better life, right? For a better life there. So they met in Chicago, and then we came along, right? That type of deal. Have always been involved in the community. So I was raised in a community called Pilsen. And in those years, it wasn't really predominantly Latino or Hispanic. There was like two of us, I think, two Latin families. But it taught me at an early age about diversity and inclusion before the term was really developed, right? Because we were living it, right? Germans, Lithuanians, Polish, Italians, we had it all. We had it all. So that's a little bit of my background, so you get the feel of who I am. You heard my career and all the, executive stuff, but when I was going to college, I was working part-time at UPS, right? Had to help make money. Had to make some money. So I worked there, and I guess I didn't know any better, and I never left, right? 38 years later, I went on there, and I had great opportunities. So I thought I'd share with you 4 key areas that I really thought helped me. And some of it may be obvious, some of it may be things that you're doing, but my hopes are that maybe there's something in there that promotes some thought, maybe reinforces what you're doing, and maybe helps you put another tool or two in your toolbox, right? So I'll start with the first one that I think is obvious, which is education, right? I think we all know that, you have to have your education. That's the ticket to play. But I tell people it's more than just the education, right? You have to build your business acumen. So what I made a practice of doing was I continued to learn. I tell people you have to be a lifelong learner, right? So as you grow in your organization, you're going to be leading, you're going to be teaching. But I always believed if you're going to be a good teacher, you have to be a good student. So learn, right? Figure out the areas that you don't feel very comfortable with and go learn about them, right? So in my case, my background was operations and engineering. So I knew that if I wanted to be an overall leader, I had to go learn a little bit about labor, maybe accounting principles, finance and accounting, some sales things, human resources, right? So I always took different assignments. I tried to go ahead and learn. I would go with people and try to say, hey, let me get into this meeting and understand that. So my I guess sharing with you is, yes, you got your bachelor's, master's, maybe even doctorate, but continue to learn. Never stop learning. Put more tools in your toolbox. And I tell you what, your organization is going to look at you and say, you know what, pretty well-rounded person. So that's the education. Be a lifelong learner. Increase your business acumen. Point number 2, there's a whole bunch of subpoints in there, but it's flexibility. So the first one that I think is really important is relocation. That's hard to do. It's hard to do. I see some of this like, uh-oh. I saw that over there like, but I mention it because as you grow and you're successful, companies are going to want your skill sets, and they're going to want them where they think it can be best used. And it may not be where you want to go. And then it's difficult, right? So like my own personal story, right? I told you I was the oldest, so I'm the protector of the family. So it's a big deal, right? Like if my mother could have me living next door to her forever, maybe even in the same house. If you get in trouble, hey, the basement, we'll fix it up, mijo, you know what I mean? So that's our culture, right? As opposed to the Anglo culture, what you hear is as soon as people finish like high school and college, the first thing they say, they're off the payroll. They're almost like kicking them out the door, right? They're gone, right? We're empty nesters. Not us Latinos, man. They want you there. So I say jokingly because it's true, you can relate, but you're going to have to relocate, and it's very difficult. Relocation is not easy, right? You're uprooting yourself. You're going into the unknown, right? You're away from your support system. And then I was blessed that I had a great partner, right? So I didn't tell you the real person, right? So I've been with my wife 42 years, right? Since 1980. Yeah, she still puts up with me. You're right there. Woo. So, I have a daughter that's in college, right? University of Miami. So if I didn't have her support, couldn't do what I did. And so you have to have them conversations because if things aren't good at home, they won't be good at work there. So flexibility, right? That relocation. And then the other part of it is be willing to go ahead and take on different experiences, right? Maybe the jobs that you don't want, the jobs that are at night when everybody's sleeping and, I was, loading trucks at 3 a.m. while you were all sleeping, that type of deal. So take on those jobs there because they're opportunities, right? And when you start to say no, I don't want to relocate because I don't want to go to South Carolina, or I don't really want to work weekends, you limit the pathways and the avenues there. So flexibility. Third point is results. You have to achieve. Whatever it is that you do, and I don't really care what it is you do, you have to get results, right? Because results gets attention. And when you get attention, you get opportunities. So I remember the CEO when he would call me up, and every time he called me, he said, hey, Dave, I got a job for you. And I used to tell him, his name's David. He's retired now, the CEO. He was 40-something years coming. He said, I got a job for you. I said, I thought I had a job, boss. I said, I had a job for you. And then he would always start, he goes, yep, it's somewhere where I need you to go because it's a hornet's nest, right? It's a hornet's nest. So like every time he called me, I think it was the third time, I told him, hey, listen, man, every time you call me, why do you call me with like a hornet's nest? It'd be nice to go to a place that was like running smooth and can you build it better? But what he told me was, he said, you know what? It's not a bad way to be categorized, right? That you're a hornet's nest type of guy, right? And at the end of the day, when I mentioned results, he knew that there was trouble there, but he had the confidence to call me up and said, I need you to go try to make this place better and get results. So results gets attention, results get you opportunity, right? And some of those opportunities may be outside the country. We live in a global world, right? So I had the great opportunity to go ahead and live internationally. I lived in Mexico City for almost 4 years, and then I lived in Europe for like 3.5 years, right? Traveling to 28 different countries there. So, keep that in mind too. When you relocate, it may not be just down the road to Des Moines, Iowa. You know, you could be somewhere in a different part of the world, that type of thing, right? And then I'll leave you with the last point there, which I think is super, super important. And it's legacy. So I tell people, what's your legacy? Like everything you're doing right now, everything that we do, everything that I did and that I continue to do, you're building your legacy. So I tell people, you know what, don't wait till you're dead. Because, you know, when you're dead, sometimes people don't tell the truth. They're not going to say bad things in the funeral home about you, right? Even though they may be thinking it. So you say, oh, that David Ruiz, he was a great guy. And you turn around, what David Ruiz, a great guy? He was a bleep, bleep, bleep. So what will they say about you when you're alive? What do they say when they mention your name? So will they say, hey, listen, it's David Ruiz. He was, man, outstanding leader, great, smart, intelligent, but he was a bleep, 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 bleep. Or what I aspire to is like two simple words, right, that I think explains a whole bunch without saying a lot. And so what I always aspire is that if somebody mentioned my name and said, man, guess who I ran into at the said Pipeline Conference? David Ruiz. I said, buena gente. Right? Right? You resonate with that? When somebody who you value says that, good people, good person, you don't have to say 3 pages worth of stuff there, because if they have respect for you, that's you saying like, I value him, right? Treats you with dignity and respect, right? Humble, approachable, not arrogant. There's all kind of things, right? And you may even say, you know what? Next time you see him, tell him I said hello. But if you don't, you say, oh, I ran into David. Okay, good. So it's important, right? The legacy. And not only in your personal lives, right? Because you'll be ambassadors of your own brand, right? And I know you had that session in the morning, right? Ambassador brand. But then you're going to be ambassadors for your organization. Not only within your company, but with the community, with government officials. And people make judgments of us. They judge us all the time. And if you foster good relationships, right, because of that legacy you build, relationships opens doors, right? And it creates opportunities there. So those are my 4 points that were instrumental to me. And I can fill your afternoon and I'd probably bore you and you'd probably say, we had enough, por favor, hey, give me a break. But I just wanted to share maybe a couple of areas that were really helpful and impactful to me there. What I'm more interested in is giving you folks time to share your thoughts, to go ahead and maybe ask a question. I'll do my very best to answer, and if not, I'll turn it over to Alberto, and I'm sure he'll answer it for me. Right? So anyway, if we could, that's all I have. Just the last point that I want to make that's really important to me, and it should be to you too. As you continue to grow and you continue to have success, right? Because you all wouldn't be here if you're not successful already. Don't forget to pull others up, right? Because I always tell people, when you build up others, you build up yourself, right? So I was sharing last night with some people that probably one of the best recognitions that I got, and I've got all these beautiful plaques in there. There's a rope. Somebody gave me a rope, that had coming. And I said, what's that? And they said, you know what? You never forget, and you're always trying to build others up, man. And so I kept that. Then people would ask, who you hanging? Why you have it? It looks like a noose over there. It's the first thing they think about a boss, right? Like, we're lynching people, right? I'm like, But it was some team members that we had some very difficult times, and they wanted to make sure that I never forgot that, they were thanking me for pulling others up, right? So I ask you to continue to do the same. And when we do that, it's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing. So let's open it up for questions right there. Comments, thoughts, or we can just go ahead and let you have a break and go to the bathroom if you like, So, yes, ma'am.
Yes, so I'm sure in your career of 36 years.
38. Felt like 80.
So at one point in time, I'm sure things got really difficult for you, right? Dealing either upper leadership or even colleagues. So what made you stay grounded in your vision if you had, to keep moving up? So what grounded you?
It's a great question. So we run into challenges and obstacles, right? So as a young boy, and I'll share this, right? Because we're here, we're family. So probably that drive and that passion for people not to minimize me, right? And not to let them define. And as a young kid where I grew up in the inner city of Chicago and Pilsen, it was terrible that people would tell me, you're not gonna be nothing. You're gonna be a gangbanger, a drug dealer, in jail, or dead. And so they shouldn't judge you by your socioeconomic background, but people did that. So, yeah, I learned. I became a little more tactful as I grew older, right? You know, maybe I was a little more voiceful, but I always said, no, I'm not gonna allow that to happen. So then I always used two terms. I said, I became strategic and surgical, right? So what's my strategy? How do I address this, right? And then the surgical part is that the things I didn't like, I cut them out of my life. And not literally with a blade or nothing like that. You know, she looking at me like, you know, oh man. So, I know. Oh Lord, oh Lord. So hopefully that answers. But there's challenges, right? There's, you know, discriminatory racism, right? Where, you know, people say things. You know, I was sharing a story and, you know, there was a senior HR and he was saying things, you know, them damn Mexicans, and he wasn't saying like that. And I happened to be standing there, right? Because he probably thought I was Italian or Greek. And so all I remember is, so how do you manage those things? I said, okay, yeah, I didn't like it, but I'm going to say, hey, you know what? I'm one of those guys. Just want to let you know. What do you think happened when I told him that? Anyway, I'm one of those guys, right? So the air got real thick. But they're real stories, right? I can't make these up. I'm not that smart to make them up. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
I'm wearing heels, so please be patient with me.
Are we good on time, folks? So I can keep you on schedule?
Hey, Jorge Neri, Bank
Jorge.
of America. I'm interested in you mentioned you were the hornet's nest guy.
Oh, yeah.
What did you find was useful, right? You knew the situation you were going into. You knew that there were challenges, but when you got in there and you started creating relationships and getting people to trust you to make changes for the better, what did you find that was helpful in those situations?
Well, I think, you know, as a leader, you have to set the tone and the vision, but then you have to include people, right? You have to make sure that you utilize their skills and talents, right? So you hear the things about you need to delegate, you can't do it all. You have to really do that. And then trust people to do it. I mean, I just used to get up, I used to tell people, I just got up on the rock and say, I think I see land. But if the people didn't row, we're never gonna get the land. And then how do you get them to row? And I think it's by treating people with dignity and respect, appreciating them, right? Doesn't mean you don't hold them accountable. I had some tough talks. I was sharing with the people last night. I never in my career swore or yelled at anybody. I just didn't think that was right, because I didn't like it to me. Now, did I have them tough talks? And my wife used to tell me, you don't have to, because if you go tell somebody, listen, I already told you twice, I'm not going to tell you a third time. She goes, you don't have to yell or nothing, because they're probably going to listen. So how do you treat folks, right? And that's when you start to believe in people, they get motivated and they get inspired. They feel valued. And that's a powerful thing. And I think those are kind of, it's not such a secret sauce, because you can't do it by yourself. We can't do anything by ourselves. So I always made a practice. And now sometimes I had to change team members, right? Because they would tell me, well, this is the way it's always been done here. Okay, well, I can see this person's not going to make the cut, right? So, because they're not open-minded, right? And there's challenges. I mean, South Carolina, when I got there, they still flew the rebel flag there. And I get on property, and on my property, UPS, I'm a share owner. I thought it was disrespectful. You had the rebel flag. What you do in your personal opinion. So people didn't care when I had that truck towed right away. Because I'm not going to let you disrespect others, right? But that sets a tone for people. It does, right? And I think sometimes your actions speak louder than words. And people, they follow that. They appreciate it. I hope that answers your question, right?
We have another question over here. Hi, Dave.
Hey, okay.
Hello. So I believe you worked internationally, I think Northern Europe and I think Mexico as well. What were some of the biggest challenges, maybe outside of language, but more whether it was culturally, of just working internationally?
Yeah, yeah, great question. So obviously there's laws and, being a transportation company, customs is a big issue, right? So I always tell people that we had to think global, but we had to act local, right? So my company, early on would want to come in and conquer Rome and do it the way that they did it in Atlanta, and it don't work like that. And so how do you kind of merge with the philosophy and the strategy of your organization, but understand the local customs and things of that nature? So that in itself you have to understand. Mexico, very tough, right? With the government, the bureaucracy, things of that nature. Living in Mexico City, the crime, right? Kidnappings and all that kind of stuff. I mean, that's real. I mean, when I'm out here, I don't worry too much about being kidnapped, right? Maybe if you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. Over there, ojo. I mean, you're watching, because it's real stuff, right? So you have to be cognizant of that, right? In Europe, because I had 28 countries, I did a lot of studying about history, right? Because I oversaw a group that had Germans, Polish, and Russians. And there's history there. And a lot of that history is not very nice history. So the younger people don't maybe quite remember, but people that were like in my age or my era had parents and grandparents that would share stories. So I had to be very aware that if I put a German person or a Russian person overseeing a Polish business unit, that probably wouldn't go over very well, right? So there was a lot of that, and then try to merge them together, right? So people are proud. So I used to move my meetings around. So we're going to do it in Poland, right? We're going to go do one in Germany. And it was interesting, right? Because all them groups like to drink vodka. So they have in common. But they're even like proud of that. So we go to the Polish area, and he says, "Hey, Dave, we want to try the vodka." And the Russian guy, "David, no vodka like Russian vodka." So even then, we couldn't agree. So I tell him, "Ivan, please, try the Polish vodka. It may be good." So there he is, trying with it. I'm hoping he says something good. He goes, "Not bad." So little things like that you have to be aware of, right? Hopefully that answers somewhat there, right? And by the way, the vodka was good, so. Yes, sir.
Hey, Sebastian.
Oh, hey, Sebastian.
Sebastian Ontiveros, Toyota. Thank you, Mr. Ruiz, for being here and imparting
Oh,
your
just
knowledge
Dave,
on
man.
us.
That was my dad, Mr. Ruiz. So.
But so I think a theme that we've seen, a reality that we've seen, or a theme in these discussions today have been that there's not enough of us in the upper echelons of our corporations, unfortunately, yet. And so I wanted to ask you what there's, kind of like a maíz ceiling, if you will. So what for you do you think helped you break through? Was it a mentor? Was it a specific instance? Was it a specific job? Because I think we're all kind of at that boiling point, right, where we're reaching that critical mass. We have pipeline that could wrap around this earth, 5,000 times. What is it that's going to help kind of push us over the edge and get us to those, executive ranks, C-suite ranks?
Yeah, you're spot on, right? So I'm certainly not happy. I mean, we made inroads. Just personally, I'm not happy with the state of where we're at, right? I still think that we don't have enough, first of all, Latinos, but Latinas there. And we have talented, dedicated people there. So I think some of the things that helped me was probably some of the things that I mentioned to you, right? That they're tough things to do, relocate. You got to get results, right? But you also have to find a way to stand up and to sell yourself, your brand, right? So, my approach was I'll take every job that nobody wants, that everybody thinks that it can't be done. And when it gets done, you get attention, right? So at that point, they didn't care, if I was Latino or Latina. What they cared about is that I was contributing to their bottom line, making them money. And they weren't going to go ahead and cut out the gooses laying the golden eggs, right? So that's why I said that gets attention. And then once you have a voice up there, then it's your responsibility to talk. So our company didn't have an employee resource group. So I asked our committee, went there and pushed, and people went, and they finally got one, but you have to go there. So yeah, they probably looked at me like the second coming of Cesar Chavez or something like that, right? Guys said, oh my God, this guy's gonna be trouble now. He does a good job, but watch it. But you have to do that, and that's responsibility, and that's tough to do, because then how do you become viewed, right? And many times I felt like they're just waiting for me to mess up, because then they have a reason, right, to take you out. So thank God I didn't mess up, Made mistakes, but not million-dollar mistakes. So it's a fine line, right? But I've always been an advocate, and I think that that's our responsibility, right? You heard Sid say, don't forget where you come from. That's really true, because I had a lot of colleagues that probably many of us know, and sometimes they walk by and don't even say hello. Wait a minute, man. ¿Qué te pasó? I said, you were just like me like 6 weeks ago. Now all of a sudden, ¿qué te crees, right? But so we all know that, right? But there's so many people that do things, and guess what? They don't do them because they want this. They do them because they want all of us to continue to have opportunities, right? I have a young daughter, she's a Latina. I want her to have an opportunity. So we continue to do that, to be advocates there and speak up, right? Find a way to do it, strategic and surgical, to get your message across, and people will listen. They will. Hope that answers your question.
Dave, good afternoon. Rafael Peralta from Bayer. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Your future's so bright, I can see the lights there. Look at that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Woo!
Thank you.
Sorry.
You spoke about valuing pulling people up. Can you share personal experience with sponsoring others, or being a sponsor for others
Sure.
in your organization? As Latinos and Latinas, we may face challenges in our careers getting that sponsorship. We have many mentors, or we may have many mentors,
Yeah.
but sponsorship, as you know, is a different level.
It is. So I'll tell you a couple of just quick stories here. So one was a Latina that was in my business unit, Giannina Mercado, right? So dynamic woman there, getting tremendous results and had desire to grow. So she ended up becoming part of my business unit. I saw a lot of talent on her, but we're going to get no traction, right? So I remember they called me up and said, well, we got another assignment for her. And I said, no, not going to let her go. If you promote her, I'll let her go. And so, everybody said, started saying, well, who the hell Dave Ruiz think he is now? He's telling us what to do and all that? Yeah. She don't go unless you promote her. And those are things that she don't know now. And so she grew, she got promoted, and then I retired, and then, I still talk to, I'm still a share owner there, so they still have to listen to me a little bit, right? You have influence. And people that were in corporate, and I would just pick up the phone, hey, man, how you doing? And I said, how's Giannina? So now they know. And then she sent me a thing and said, hey, now I got promoted, I'm a regional director and stuff. And I also got her involved in the Young Hispanic Corporate Achievers here. She was under 40, so I saw her and I asked her, I didn't force her, I said, I think it would be great. So after she came this, she was like blown away, sent me this beautiful letter that makes a grown man cry. And the next year she was pregnant and she asked to go. And she was really pregnant. But she wanted to go, right? So I think those are things that you do. And then my good friend who replaced me, who Sid knows, Willie Rivero. So it's probably about 15, 17 years ago. I was telling our corporate HR people, they're supposed to be developing people. I said, why do we not expose to upcoming leaders in some of these conferences? At the time, it was called National Council La Raza, and Sid was on the board there. It's changed to Unidos. So they had a conference. I said, well, here's who I think should go there. Oh, well, thanks for your opinion. No. They need to be there. And so they showed up there, right? These were upcoming people. I didn't know him. I got a chance to meet him there. A Latina who I got a chance to meet there, right? And we didn't have Latina presidents at that time. I thought very highly of her, man. She was that New York Rican, man. Fire. She was fire, man. And smart. So they came to that conference. They got a little visibility. And they both became officers of the company. And, she's running a big part up in the Northeast. And then Willie is now in charge of corporate automotive, right? So those are just a couple of areas there. But you be an advocate. How do you open a door? They did the work. They did all the work. They just need an advocate, right? In my own case, I had one guy who actually set me up to go to Mexico, and he was a Latino, but my other mentors weren't. They were Irish guys. So it's like that Carlos and Charlie's in Mexico, right, you know? Irish, Mexicano guys, right? But they respected the talents in that, and they were always advocates. And to this day, I get together with them every year. We go golf. Well, I dig a ditch. I don't really golf, you know, so I dig a ditch. But you build those relationships in that there, so hopefully that gives you a little bit of flavor. How are we doing on time? We doing okay?
We have one more question right over here.
Yes, ma'am. Oh. Okay, two more. Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much. Carla Santamaria, First Gen Coaching and Consulting. So one of the things that you mentioned was flexibility. And I wanted to ask how you balance or integrate flexibility with living with your values and living your values in the workplace, you know, and as a whole, how do you balance that with being flexible?
Yeah, that's a great question, right? Because you always hear the things about work-life balance, right? And we do that. So I, you know, probably early on, I probably didn't do it very good, right? You're just driven and like, okay, maybe I had a little time to do this, do that. And then as I started to get a little older, I started to realize that I got to make sure that I took the time to either decompress, celebrate, and quite frankly, my eyes were opened even bigger when I took on my international assignments, right? Because like here in the USA, vacation time is earned and your company decides that. So like if you're with a company X years, you get X vacations, right? And then you go to Y years and you get Y vacations. Well, that's not how it is in other parts of the world. You go to Europe and you're a day one employee, you get 30 days vacation like that. And listen, they take them. They take them. And they take them all at once. I'm not kidding, true story. My marketing manager came to me in August and said, hey, Dave, I'm going on holiday. They call it, honey, I'm going on vacation. I'll see you in September. And that was August. So you get to learn. But what I realized is that, you know, you've heard the saying, do you live to work or do you work to live? So just my assessment doesn't mean it's right, but what I learned is that I was following that I live to work. Much of like the USA, right? You get a 3-day weekend here, you may do something, but you say, I'm gonna paint the house, or, you know, I'm gonna fix the roof. You know, I'm gonna do the yard, right? Because we're always doing something like that. Not in Europe, man. They're gone. They're going to the ocean. You know, they used to tell me, they said, oh, you must want an American home. What's an American home? Big. So they gave it, when I was in Mexico, they made it a point to find out my birthday every year. I never told them. And then every year on my birthday, my administrative assistant said, hey, Dave, the staff wants to take you out to lunch. Do you think they did that here in the United States? I was 357560625, man. I mean, that's who I was. But over there, those people said, we want to take you to lunch. So I got to embrace to say, you know what? How do I balance that live to work or do I work to live, right? And so, you know, I tried. So now I'm doing a lot of like living now, you know, so I'm not doing too much work. We have one more question, right? And I know you got to be on schedule, so.
Good afternoon. My name is Jackie Perez. I'm with Bank of America. First of all, I want to say congratulations on a successful career.
Oh,
so,
thank you. Thank you.
So you may have answered in some ways, but my question is, if you would have done something differently in your 38 years at UPS, what would have it been and why?
If I would have done something different, huh? Oh, boy. That could get me in trouble. No, you know what? I have no regrets, right? So one of the things that I decided early on, right, was the big step that I wanted to move away. What I didn't want to do was live life later and say, what would have or what could have, right? And it was interesting because, you know, I'll regress there, but so when I was going to college, right, well, when I finished high school, I had told my dad, just get me a job at the company you're working at, right? He was a Teamster making good money, and he said, no. He said, I worked all my life with my back. I want you to work with this. I said, okay. I said, but listen, man, there's 4 kids, right? We're all going to private school. We'll figure it out. He was the only one that worked. So fast forward, I'm in college, right? You know, I was very, very good in math, but he said, you'd be a great lawyer. Okay, so, all right, you want me to be that? And then I was working at UPS. So I graduated, but I never went to law school. And then I was working at UPS, had to get a full-time job, and the job they were going to give me was a truck driver, right? I was going to be a delivery driver. So the conversation went a little bit like this. So it probably doesn't translate very well like in English, but he was sitting there, he goes, deja entender esto. So now you're getting the gist, right? Let me understand this, right? So you just finished going to college and you tell me you're going to be a truck driver. So then I told him what my thoughts were. I said, Dad, you know what? Maybe someday I can become a supervisor and manage 25 to 30 drivers, right? And from what I'm seeing there, they become part of the management program, and they have like, you know, stock program and stuff like that. Maybe okay. So now, like 15 years later, I'm the president of UPS Mexico, right? The country my dad left. And I remember we were sitting there on this balcony, smoking a cigar, drinking cognac. I was being yelled at by my mom, enseñando los vicios al papá, you know, fumando y tomando y... And so we finished, and my dad was deep in thought. And I thought something was wrong, right? Like maybe health is... I said, man, ¿qué te pasa? ¿Qué estás pensando? What do you... And here's what he shared with me. And that's why I said I wouldn't do anything over. He said, so I'm sitting here, and he says, a country that I left 35 years ago to look for opportunity, and now my son's back in my home country creating opportunity. So would I do anything different? No. That to me was like heaven, right? So now you get to know a little bit about me, right? And I think that's important, right? That we're human, right? We all have these titles and executives, you know, and all this, you know. Who cares, man? We're people. My story's not much different than a lot of your stories. They're very much the same. So my whole intent today was hopefully a couple of these things are valuable, that it was insightful. Hopefully I can inspire and motivate you. Say, if that guy can do it, I think I can do it. Que se cree? He's not that smart, you know. So that's all I have, folks. I really appreciate all of you. Congratulations on your success. I wish you all the very best. Thank you.